Thursday. Start off with the roll call. Maura, you make the roll call.
Thank you, Chair. Members are hereby summoned to the Planning Committee, which is hybrid socially distanced meeting conducted remotely via WebEx and also physically in the main hall of the Guildhall on Thursday the 23rd, 2021. Alderman Alan Breslin.
He's not on at the minute, Maura. He's hoping to get in at some stage.
Thank you. Alderman Derek Hussey.
In the chamber, right?
Okay. Alderman Keith Carrigan.
Here, Maura.
Okay. Alderman Hilary McClintock.
Again, unless she's in the chamber, she had said she mightn't be in, but she hopes to get on to the meeting later, unless she's in the chamber and pronounce that.
Thank you. Councillor Jason Barr.
Here, Maura.
Councillor John Boyle.
Here in the chamber.
Councillor Angela Dobbins. Councillor Paul Gallagher.
And Sean.
Councillor Christopher Jackson. Councillor Dan Kelly.
Shaw, Maura.
Thank you. Councillor Kieran Maguire. Councillor Philip McKinney. Apologies. Councillor Sean Mooney.
Here.
Thank you. And Councillor Damien Mullen. I'll just run through some of these names again, Chair, just in case. Alderman Alan Breslin. No. Alderman Hilary McClintock. Councillor Angela Dobbins. Councillor Christopher Jackson.
And Shaw, Maura. Sorry, my screen froze.
Thanks. I know Councillor Philip McKinney, the Chair, has sent apologies. And Councillor Damien Mullen? No. That's it. Thank you, Chair.
Maura, declarations of interest, members declare them as we go along, I'm sure. Chairperson's business, I have none. Vice Chairperson's business. So we'll move right into the planning applications. It's item 13, is it? 13, yeah. Andre has taken that. Are you okay to go, Andre?
Apologies, members, can you see the screen okay there? You see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Apologies for the delay there. The first item is item 13, LA11 2020-0537F. The proposal is an application under Section 54 of the Planning Act, Northern Ireland 2011, to vary condition number 11 of Planning Permission J 2006 0883F to extend the operational lifetime of the wind farm from 25 years to 30 years. The location is Gortna Cross, Sagronan and Meenamullen TD, and is at Collator, Strabane, County Tyrone, and the recommendation is to approve. So members, the application site is located off Meenamullen Road, southwest of Collator in Castlederg. 6 turbines were approved by DOE in 2011. The wind farm has been built and became operational in July 2016. There are several operational wind farms in the locality, including Tevenamita, Craigshane and Churchill. So this slide shows the further detail regarding the location of the turbines. The turbines have a base to blade tip height of 110 metres and the wind farm is operational. So the proposals, members, a number of conditions were placed on the planning approval J 2006-0883 granted by DOE. Condition 11 stated that all above ground structures shall be dismantled and removed from the site 25 years from when the wind farm is commissioned to the grid, or shall be removed if electricity generation has ceased on site for a period of 6 months, unless further consent is granted. The land shall be restored in accordance with an agreed scheme. The wind farm, as approved, has been erected and was commissioned to the grid in July 2016. Therefore, the wind farm's operational lifetime would cease in July 2041. By allowing the variation of condition 11 as proposed to extend the operational lifetime of the wind farm to 30 years would result in the wind farm being extended to 2046. The remaining substance of the condition will not change, and that the structures shall be removed if electricity generation has ceased on site for a period of 6 months, unless further consent is granted, and the land shall be restored in accordance with an agreed scheme. So members, there were a number of consultees who were consulted during the processing of the application. DFI Roads, NI Water, Environmental Health, Lochs Agency, DFI Rivers, SES, Fermanagh Noma District Council, NIE Wind Farm Developments, Tourism Northern Ireland, Defence Infrastructure, the Ministry of Defence, Belfast International Airport, City of Derry Airport and St Angelo Airport, the Civil Aviation Authority, Department for the Economy, DFE Geological Survey, Archiva, Westica, Cable and Wireless, Everything Everywhere, Joint Radio Company, Ofcom, NIEA, HED and RSPB NI. All consultations have returned and have no objection to the proposed amendment to the condition. So the following planning policies have been considered during the processing of the application and are set out in detail in the planning report. So the RDS, the SPPS, the Strabane Area Plan, PPS 2, 3, 18 and Supplementary Planning Guidance and PPS 21. So in conclusion, members, no representations were received during the processing of the application. The principle of a 6-number turbine wind farm at Sagronan has been approved, implemented and is operational. This proposal is considered acceptable when assessed against the criteria set out in PPS 18 and all other relevant policy requirements and all material considerations, including the previous site history and the implemented planning approval. The proposed variation of the project's operational lifetime from 25 years to 30 years is not considered significant and would not have an unacceptable adverse impact upon the landscape character, visual amenity or residential amenity. The officer's recommendation is to approve the application subject to conditions as set out in the planning report. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. We have a speaker, Hayley Wilson, agent.
Afternoon, Chair, members. Thank you for the opportunity to address the committee today. My name is Hayley Wilson. I'm lead agent on behalf of Brookfield Renewable. We welcome the recommendation of approval and do not need to repeat the content in the report, which we find very comprehensive. Thus, I'm merely present today to answer any question that the members may have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Hayley. Have we any questions? Any questions for the agent from virtual? No questions? Okay, Hilly, thank you. Any questions of the officer? Any proposals? Sorry,
Chair, could I? Yeah,
Councillor
it's,
Kelly.
yeah. Yeah, just thank the officer for the report. I suppose I'm picking up just on an aspect of the consideration within the report, and at every time, and even in the verbal update to the committee, it's not considered significant is the terminology that's used in the. I accept that, but I'm at the same time I'm thinking to myself, but why take the chance? Why not reinforce the conditions to ensure that even though we may say it's not considered significant, that we kind of use belt and braces to ensure that there is no significant impact from this extension. And I do take a wee bit of issue with not the officer, but particularly with the consultees, because I don't think we can say that these were considered as part of the original application, when for most part applications are considered on a 25-year basis and not a 30-year basis. So that additional 5 years could have an impact, for example, on where we've got a raised we just need. So in relation to my question is really in relation to the conditions more than to the report, and I'm just querying why in condition 1 it states all above structures, which is a replication of the DOE position. I just think in 2046 we don't know what technologies might exist, and we don't know to what degree the concrete, those huge concrete substructures that are holding up the turbines, to what extent they may have degraded. They are in an acidic environment. We don't know that. So why limit that condition to just above ground structures? Why not just say all structures, which would give the relevant planning officer and councillors at that time the scope then to look at the substructure if needs be at that time. It may not have to, but it gives them that scope at that time when we wouldn't be around. Just in relation to the habitat management plan in condition 3, I think the extension from 25 to 30 years causes me a wee bit of concern insofar as a report will be submitted at years 5 and years 10. But my thinking is, why is it not submitted at year 5, which I understand is this year, and then sort of thereafter every 5 years over the course of the life of the wind turbine or the wind farm, and that would ensure that we would see trends, and if anything negative is happening, then intervention can happen at an earlier stage rather than just leaving it, with nothing being reported for 20 years and then finding out when the wind farm has completed its lifespan that there's trouble or something has happened that can't be remediated at that stage. So I would just that's another question. And Chair, finally, I do think there's a condition missing, and it's effectively a repeat of condition 9 in terms of the wording, I might suggest. So it would be a condition 10, and it's along the lines of condition 9, except for an ecologist or environmental consultant. So the wording could be along the lines of access shall be afforded to the site at all reasonable times to any ecologist or environmental consultant nominated by the council to observe the operations and to monitor the implementation of environmental requirements. I think that would be useful in terms of us being serious about protecting and conserving the habitats that are on site.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Andrew, do you want to respond to them comments? Or if there were a proposal, would there be any issue of putting them in as a condition?
Yeah, I suppose through the chair, a section 54 is really a variation of a condition that was placed on an earlier approval. And in this case, that approval has been implemented and the wind farm is operational. So we need to be careful with conditions that we can't impose anything new or onerous on a new Section 54. A Section 54, I suppose we are granting planning permission. Again, it is a full application, but it really only has the effect of amending the condition that the applicant has applied for. So I don't think that in amending and taking out the reference, sorry, I'm just relating to condition 1 there. It says all above ground structures. So with regards to the query that we could remove above ground within that, so it will read all structures shall be dismantled. I think that is acceptable if that's what the members want. With regards to condition 3, there would have been a similar condition, the same condition on the earlier approval, part of which of that has been discharged, and that would have related to reports that would have had to be submitted during the lifetime of the previous approved wind farm that is operational at the minute. So I suppose this grant of permission means that we will be receiving a discharge of condition 5 years from now and 10 years from now to ensure the habitat management plan is submitted to show that the achievement of the actions is ongoing. I think to impose anything more than that is maybe going outside the remit of this Section 54 approval, and that we're introducing something new in this. But if members wanted conditioned that an additional report in year 15 is submitted, we could add that in. And the last one, putting on a new condition with regards to an ecologist or environmental person being able to access the site at all times. I could certainly add that as an informative to the permission. I don't think the wind farm operator would have an issue with that. And obviously the reports have to be submitted by ecologists, by professional people anyway during the processing of the lifetime of the operation of the wind farm. I hope that answers your queries. Happy to come back if there's anything further.
Councillor Kelly, have you heard all that?
Yeah, Chair, thank you, and thanks to the officer for that clarification. I'm just wondering then, in relation to condition 3, if we can't have varied for every 5 years, can we still request the report at year 25 that would have come in, which would have been the original decommissioning stage of the process? So that wouldn't be an additional onerous request on the operator or the applicant, because that was already agreed. So there would be a gap in the middle, yes, which I'm not content really about, but I accept the rationale for that. But the original permission did have at the 25-year stage, or which would have been the lifespan at that permission, a report at that stage. And I'm just wondering, can we still ask for that at the 25-year stage now out of the 30?
Yeah, so you want the condition 3 amended, and that the habitat management plan shall be submitted to council in year 5, 10 and year 25.
I think that would be, well, if that's as far as we can take it, yeah, I think that would be useful, Chair.
That's fine. I can amend those conditions when the permission's being issued.
Okay, are you making
Thanks.
a proposal, Councillor Kelly, and adding the conditions?
Indeed, I am not. I'm just making a point around the conditions.
Well, I'm going to need a proposal from someone.
Chair, I think Councillor Kelly has done the legwork there, and if we're content, Chair, I'm content to make the proposal based on the conditions there that Councillor Kelly's been outlining, if you need that, Chair. Thank you.
Do you, Councillor Kerrigan? A seconder? Councillor Kelly?
I'll second it.
Councillor Breslin? Okay. Apologies, Alan, you weren't there for the start. Be another. Councillor Mooney. Is there anyone against or abstentions? Are we all in favour? Seems to be unanimous. Enough, Philip? Okay, to those online, is there anyone not in favour of the proposal? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. Item 14, I think it's Suzanne taking it, is it? Sorry, sorry, item 4, Suzanne. Apologies.
Thanks, Chair. Can everyone see the screen okay? Can you see it on?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, members, item 4 is the proposed 2-storey extension to facilitate a manager's apartment to existing commercial business, 1 Woodville Road, Eglinton. And the reference is LA 11 2019 0627. This application was previously presented to committee back in February 2021. And you'll recall that members had agreed to defer the application then for the submission of a flood risk assessment. So the site here in front of you, you can see here on the location plan submitted with the application, the site outlined in red. And here we have the satellite image on the right, again, just showing the property adjacent to the road. The proposal is for a manager's apartment. And here are the elevations. It's an existing beauty business. The floor plan and some photos of the site. So really, you will recall the policy, the policy context is listed in front of you in the reports. The main issue that we have in this one is to do with the flooding. So the site is within an undefended floodplain, 1 to 100, and the site did actually flood back in August 2017, or the time that we had the floods in the district. So in terms of the consultee responses, the only issue really remains with Rivers Agency and Shared Environmental Services with how to flood risk assessment. Shared Environmental Services can complete the habitats regs assessment on behalf of council. You'll be all aware of the policy context. This development is not an exception within PPS 15. Therefore, there is a presumption against development. I know members had considered the submission of a flood risk assessment. So we have gone back to the agent and requested that again following committee in February. We have received nothing other than an offer of a drainage assessment, which is not going to be sufficient in modelling the flood risk. You can just see there some photos that were submitted of the site when it did flood in 2017. So looking then just at FLD1, as I say, it's not listed as an exception. We have been unable then to progress this case with any other altered recommendation members. We did receive correspondence, I think, back in March from the agent to the case officer advising that they were going to actually pursue rather than a manager's apartment and a commercial extension. And the case officer advised that would obviously require a new application. We've heard nothing since. We have notified them in terms of our revised, our recommendation that being unaltered. So really the critical issues are no flood risk assessment, therefore we can't complete the HRA, and we can't recommend any other recommendation other than refusal. So for those reasons, the application is returned with an unaltered opinion to refuse, as before, as the reasons outlined in your pack. So I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Suzanne. Councillor John.
Thanks, Chair. Chair, no questions, to be honest with you. I think we can cut to the chase with this one, because the officer's recommendation in front of me is the one that I think is the only one we can actually apply to this. If nobody has a question, I'll make a proposal in relation to that.
Before you make a proposal, I'll just go around once more.
That's okay,
I'll let you
Chair,
make a
thank you.
proposal. Anyone online wanna? Any questions? No.
All right, thanks, Chair.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Is it a question?
Yes, it is, Chair, for the officer. I'm just wondering, Suzanne, the report indicates that, like you've said, and I agree with the conclusions drawn, but I'm just wondering, in terms of the recommendation to refuse and the probable refusal by the committee, in terms of planning history on the site, then does that not impact negatively on their talk about bringing forward a business application for that site? How does that work then? Is that not a sort of a negative planning history on that site and that will impact on any future development? I don't understand why they would let it run to a refusal. Why would they not just withdraw the application?
Okay, through the chair. Yes, Councillor Kelly. It's a refusal on the site will be obviously a consideration in any other application. If they are coming forward with a revised application for a commercial extension, they have been advised that they will need a flood risk assessment, and that at the moment it still won't meet FLD1 either at the moment, but it depends what they submit at the time, and we would probably have to wait and see if it comes in. I mean, I know the case officer has contacted both the agent and the planning consultant who spoke, you'll recall, at the last committee meeting. So it's really over to them. If they don't want to withdraw it, we would have to progress it to a conclusion.
That's fine, Chair. No, I was just curious, and apologies to Councillor Boyd for jumping in, but I just was curious about that single point. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Kelly. Councillor Boyd.
Thanks, Chair. Actually, I had wondered about that myself. Councillor Kelly was asking me, the logical thing in my mind would have been withdraw this, and then it would never have come in front of us, but here it is. And a couple of points, I suppose, really. There's been when the officers have reported, actually, the agent has said there's a material change in the circumstances of the applicant in the first instance, and that they have found accommodation or living elsewhere in the village. But probably more significantly is the lack of the flood risk assessment that we asked for back in February. So, and obviously the agent has been advised if they want to use it for a different purpose, and that's a new planning application. So on that basis, I propose we accept the recommendation to refuse. But perhaps it should not have been in front of us at all, but that was of course up to the agent and the applicant.
A seconder. Councillor Gallagher. All those in favour? It's unanimous in the chamber. Anyone online against? Anyone online abstaining? Okay, I'll take that as unanimous. Item 7. And that's back to Andre again.
So members, the purpose of the report item 7 is to advise members of receipt of a consultation from DFI to Council on the 18th of June. And it's in relation to a planning application LA 11 2019 1000/F. and it's for a 33 kV power line to serve Carnaholt mine in Greencastle. The planning application for the mine and the proposed electricity line to which this paper relates are being dealt with by DFI planning. The application for the electricity line is accompanied by an environmental statement. Part of the line is within this council area. That will comprise of almost 30 kilometres of line in total. 18.7 kilometres is overhead line on single and double poles, and 4 kilometres of underground cabling. A further part of the line is within the Fermanagh and Omagh council area. The proposed line is located within the Sperrins AOMB. DFI have consulted this council to seek any comments they wish to make on the application, and officers are happy to collate any comments members wish to make regarding the application, and will return a consultation response to DFI as soon as possible. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Andre. Mr. Gallagher.
Just a couple of questions possibly on it. And there's a lot of things going on. There's like a public inquiry going on around a lot of the stuff that's been recently announced. And council also has a separate judicial review ongoing, and a lot of stuff that we talked about in that. I'm not going into the detail of it, but some of it was around, you know, what's the phrase, salami slicing that goes on, and I think that we need to be responding back on this, and I think that some of the findings that we've already, council already has, could be submitted back to them on this. I don't want to go into detail because we discussed it in confidentiality, but we should.
Comments?
Can I jump in there?
Mr. Kelly, yeah.
Yeah, just following on from Councillor Gallagher, I suppose I would be coming from a base which is that I would be concerned generally, not in respect of this application, but just in generally at the seemingly wanton disregard exhibited by NIE for not just this district, but for the governance structures that exist to manage development within this district. And in relation to this application, I think it's important to point out in our submission, and I would be suggesting that we do make a submission to DFI, is that this application is one of 3 interconnected. So the power line that runs from Ballinagorry up to the other side of Plumbridge, then from there up to Greencastle is Fermanagh Omagh Council, and then the gold mine application itself is Fermanagh Omagh Council, with all 3 are being dealt with through from DFI strategic planning. But a couple of points that are specific on the planning application in front of us is there's no justification in the case file for this power line, given that the gold mine company have withdrawn the original need for the power line, which is the processing plant on site. So I don't understand why they are continuing with the power line for the processing plant when the processing plant is no longer part of the gold mine application. So I find that odd in itself. There's no explanation in the case file how NIE arrived at this convoluted route selection. There's no evidence in the file that they examined any other route or a shorter route. For example, you know, perhaps Cookstown up to Greencastle up along the A505 would have been a much less intrusive route for them to power any processing up there. Not that I'm subjecting any other part of the Sperrins or wanted to subject any other part of the Sperrins to power lines, but I'm just saying there's no evidence that they examined less intrusive routes than the one that's in front of us. There's no explanation given why they seek such a significant departure from the strategic planning policy statement, particularly at SPPS 6.250. It's very specific, the text, and it is lifted from the retained policy, so there'll be no conflict there, which is states any proposal for the development of new power lines should avoid areas of landscape sensitivity, including areas of outstanding natural beauty. So there's very specific text there, and there's no rationale why NIE are seeking to deviate from that policy position. There's also no explanation given why they seek to deviate from the SPPS in terms of tourism. Particularly, I'm thinking, well, there's a lot of paragraphs there, but I'm looking here at 6.262. It reads, the safeguarding of such tourism assets, and the list of tourism assets includes areas of outstanding natural beauty. So the safeguarding of such tourism assets from unnecessary, inappropriate or excessive development is a vital element in maintaining a healthy tourism industry. To allow such development could damage the intrinsic character and quality of the asset and diminish its effectiveness in attracting tourists. Accordingly, planning permission should not be granted for development that would have an adverse impact on a tourism asset. And I say that not just in relation to the AONB, but I'm saying it in relation to, we've got the relaunch of the Spare Scenic Drives not that long ago. We have the Appalachian Trail, a significant investment by council which runs crisscrosses. You know, that power line is proposed to crisscross the Appalachian Trail, the Scenic Drives. And we've also got approval planning just last month for our section of the Spare Sculpture Trail, which is also going to be crisscrossed by that power line. So there's a lot of tourism development happening in and around that area, which I think would be impacted adversely by these overhead lines, which I don't think there's any justification for.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, I think, Andre, is there enough there for submission to respond to DFI?
Yes, if members are content, I can put that in a consultation response to DFI. If members wish, I can pass it through the chair for validation of that before it's submitted. If you'd prefer that, or if you're content, I can just get it sent. I've made notes anyway of what has been said so far.
Okay, just for the minutes, we'll get a proposal that we do make a.
Chair, can I come back?
To DFI, yeah. Councillor Geller.
Yes.
Councillor Geller.
And could I suggest that we confer with our legal department, who also has a lot of information that can be submitted as well, on top of that?
And Councillor Kelly.
Yeah, Chair, I would appreciate if the correspondence could be circulated to members. I'd also just maybe seek clarification around whether this application, because it's being dealt with by DFI as part of those other applications, one of which is going to be subject to a public inquiry, well, does that mean that all parts of that application are then subject to the public inquiry, or is it just the gold mine part that sits with the public inquiry?
Through the chair, I have no information at this stage that the overhead line that this application in particular will be subject to a public inquiry. I suppose the only consultation we have at the minute is the one that's in front of members, and that's what we're responding to. I have no information that it would be. I mean, I suppose a public inquiry may look at the project as a whole, which would include the electricity line. But I don't know any more than that at the minute with regards to the other applications.
Chair, is it possible to find that out from DFI strategic planning?
Yes, I'll make that inquiry.
Thank you.
Councillor Geller, you want back in there?
Thank you. If you need a proposal, I'm happy to make the proposal, but it is my understanding that this is included in the public inquiry.
Okay.
Do I understand?
Councillor Boyd?
Just to say, Chair, I mean, I fully concur with the observations of both Councillor Gallagher and Councillor Kelly in relation to this in its entirety. I suppose it makes sense to ask the question of DFA because the absolute terms of reference of the proposed public inquiry are not evident, certainly not to me anyway. Councillor Gallagher, I don't doubt what you're saying, but obviously as time rolls on, maybe it'll become much more evident. So I would say, it's a question worth asking, see what we do have coming back. So just for now, completely concur with the approach suggested in terms of the response, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Just to confirm, I'm looking at the DFA press release from the 19th, and it does confirm in paragraph 4 that the department considers that as they are inextricably linked to the gold mine project, that those electricity matters will be part of the public inquiry as well. So it's all three factors are going to be part of the inquiry.
It's been proposed, the recommendation here has been proposed that we make a response. Councillor Gallagher's proposed it to be a seconder. Councillor Boyd. Anyone against that? Chamber or online? Anyone abstaining? No, so that's unanimous. Okay, thank you. Item 8, Suzanne, planning appeals update.
Thanks, Chair. So members, you'll see from the report that we have received one new appeal since the last report to Planning Committee, and we also have 2 decisions back on 2 committee decisions on the West End Park site. On number 19 West End Park, both the change of use application to the 6-bed HMO and also the retention of the apartments. Both those appeals were dismissed, and the Commissioner agreed with the reasons for refusal. Happy to take, and the applicant did have 2 cost decisions submitted, but the Commission obviously ruled that those were not, the decisions were not unreasonable, the behaviour was not unreasonable, and those were refused as well. So happy to take any questions. Thanks.
Suzanne, any questions? Online, any questions? Noted. Item 9, DFA planning advice note. There's some additional information.
Yep. I'll take that, Chair. So members.
Sorry, Suzanne,
Yeah.
do members want to read the additional information or happy to proceed? Okay. Happy to proceed. Suzanne, sorry about that.
Okay, no, you're fine, no problem. Thanks, Chair. So yes, members, we have obviously provided you an information paper on an update on the planning advice note that was issued by DFI on the 2nd of August. And since the papers were issued, we've also, as a council, received correspondence from Jonathan Buckley, MLA, the chairperson of the Committee for Infrastructure. And then also the Ulster Farmers Union has written to council as well on the matter. So just really looking at what, the paper's really just advising you just the background of the plan, and it really was back in March 2016 that the consultants were commissioned to undertake background research, and they provided the final report in 2017, and then we received a plan from DFI on the 2nd of August. So I think the most important thing, it doesn't add or change the existing policy or guidance, and is relevant to all planning authorities and all users in the system. So obviously the Planning Appeals Commission and also in the determination of LDPs. So really just the fundamental parts that it's putting forward. Firstly, in relation to integration and rural character, DFI are advising that there was a perceived ambiguity within the policy wording of PPS 21, where sometimes whereby integration and impact and rural character were not given intended consideration and weight, and they are reinforcing the issue that they consider all forms of development in the countryside must therefore integrate into their setting in accordance with the SPPS. And there should be no adverse impact on rural character. In terms of dwellings on farms, the PAN is advising that it would be expected there would be a group of farm buildings in the holding to cluster with, and refers to the supplementary planning guidance within the document Building on Tradition. And it's also saying that, for the purpose of CTOI 10, that new dwellings on farms should be cited to visually link or cluster with an established group of buildings on the farm holding, which would not include a dwelling and domestic garage only. So obviously we'll have some discussion around that. In terms of the infill ribbon position, they're clarifying that it was not the intention of the policy that unsubstantial ancillary buildings, such as domestic garages or small outbuildings, would have been considered suitable in any reasonable planning assessment of a proposal for an infill dwelling, given their limited size and visual impact. And then there's also reference to the CTY 2A, the clustering policy, whereby they are advising that all the criteria and policy CTY 2A are required to be met in order for a proposal to meet the requirements of the new dwellings and existing clusters policy. So members, happy to take any questions on it. Thank you.
Okay, members. Expect some discussion on this from the rural councillors. Any questions? None? Keith, sorry.
Chair. Yeah, sorry, Chair. Thank you. Chair, again, Chair, it's going through this, and this was touched upon. Maura did touch on this on Tuesday. I'm trying to think what day of the week we're on here now at the minute. It was touched upon, and to be fair, I know, I know a lot of things there we've discussed, and again, I'm not there massively long, Chair, but again, from my time there on the planning committee, there were things that were open to interpretation there, and this plan advice note just seems to be very much the department laying down the law, and it just is what it is. And I mean, I think a lot of the thing has been summarised there, and to be fair, I thought it was a very good letter, and I can see where the Farmers Union are coming from in regards to the letter they have wrote and the concerns that they have. And to be fair, I think the vast majority of rural councillors would have very, very much similar concerns. I mean, Chair, it's integrating in there. I mean, any of those dwellings there on farms, and I mean, it's there's so much difficulty with it and farm safety. And again, if you're tying in a dwelling house tight into farm buildings, you're potentially then hindering that farm expanding. As well. If you're trying to say, there's so many difficulties, and I know it's not a planning issue, but Chair, there are issues there in regards to oftentimes a lot of the farms there's two people working on it. It should be a son coming on or a daughter coming on, and there's another dwelling house that they're getting a site to live on, and there's the difficulty of as has plainly highlighted. There's the difficulty of you'll not get a mortgage if you're up a shared lane. And tying in tight to another dwelling house, you'll not get a mortgage if you're sitting tight against farm buildings, because for a self build, because they're not going to, the lenders aren't going to lend because it's going to be too difficult to try to sell on. There's so many problems that I see in that, Chair, and I do have to say, I do think that the letter from the Farmers Union does summarise a lot of the difficulties that I would see, and integrating in there, I mean, is everybody going to have to plant a pair of bushes? I mean, I'm thinking there, Chair, I mean, two applications stick in my head. Now, I can't remember numbers or anything else, but there was one, Chair, up above Edenray Road, and you know, and you know the one I'm on about. You know, it was on up there, up and again, the dwellings houses up there. It's bare open country, and you're not going to get away with planting bushes around it. And that house was going to be such. We passed a house on that maybe several months ago, and that was grand. That was it was tying in with the other dwelling houses in that area. There was another one out above Dunnamana and heading out for sort of Finney direction. And again, that part of the country out there, it was more kind of open country. And again, we were passing that there was a bungalow would be built out there, and it would tie in with the other dwelling houses out there. It's this integration thing as well. So, Chair, I do have difficulties with it, and to be fair, I'm minded that it's the department just trying to maybe just pull us back into line again. But that's my thoughts at the minute. I might comment later, Chair. Thank you.
You, Councillor Kerrigan. Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Chair. And I suppose in a similar vein, I didn't take well to the circulation, the unadvised circulation of a planning advice note from DFI back during the summer recess. There's a couple of observations. I think just in addition to Keith, you know, that PPS 21 was issued in June 2010, and we're now, you know, September 2021. So 11 years on, with most councils in a position where they're kind of adopting their local area plans. What is DFI strategic planning doing? Circulating an advice note on planning policy, which is borderline defunct, and that's I just can't get my head around why they're wasting time on stuff like this. As far as I'm concerned, our housing and the way we interpret the policy is sound. And, you know, I reject the implied assertion within the planning advice notes that our decisions are somehow leading to adverse impact. I reject that. It's unfounded. It's part of this creeping interference by strategic planning in the local planning authorities that I find objectionable. So I think, you know, is this about how the independent examination is going to kind of the tone that's being set for the independent examination in relation to local area plans? Because I don't see that has really any relevance in terms of planning decisions. Our planning decisions are sound as far as I'm concerned. I think they're well made. I think the minimal scope that exists currently within how we can interpret policy in rural areas in relation to PPS 21, and I'm mindful of the fact that, you know, this council a number of years ago corporately rejected PPS 21. However, we're stuck with it until it's gone. But I'm at a loss to know what strategic planning are at. I think they have better things to be doing with their time, and very much agree with the letter from the Ulster Farmers Union. I think we should be writing to the department, to the minister, asking her to withdraw this official guidance, because it's I don't know what her civil service were at issuing this. They have 101 things to be doing, you know, and we've got a planning portal that's sitting from 2015, which is useless. There's a lot of things that could be doing, and this isn't one of them, as far as I'd be concerned. And in terms of the letter from the, I suppose it's an associated issue, the letter from the DFI committee at Stormont, I would be very much of the opinion that we should be responding to that as a local planning authority, and with you know, in broad terms, telling that whilst we are never accepted PPS 21 as a local planning authority, at least the minimum scope we had within that in terms of what little interpretation there was, we were able to use that to ensure that there were sound planning decisions taken, and that this district benefited from that, and that the direction of travel within DFI is not welcome. And I think so. That's my kind of tuppence worth on it.
Councillor Kelly. Councillor Hussey.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for the report. I'm wondering, it's just it's a continual closing down of getting people to actually live in the countryside. Yes, with regard to somebody wants a farm dwelling on their farm, but they don't necessarily want to live beside the engine room. It's as simple as that. Yes, this is my farm. I'm on my farm, I want to live on my farm, but, I want to separate from my work a wee bit. For example, should we be saying that all school teachers should live in a wee estate around the school that they're teaching in? It doesn't make much sense to me. And, that dwellings have to be associated with the cluster of the working buildings that are on our farm. And then later on, we're told if it's infill, etc. Well, actually, there are certain buildings that don't count. So buildings can count when you want to have a house, a dwelling within a farm setting. So they can count there, but you're not allowed to count them if you're talking with regard to infill. The issue on existing clusters also ignores cluster creation. Because, I mean, I have a great desire, and I suspect that a lot in this council would have the desire for repopulation of our countryside. Many, many people have left the countryside, and it is people who make the environment. People they're the custodians, they're out there, they're looking after the area. So, I do have that concern, but the original concern there that I think was Councillor Kelly referred to, forcing somebody to live right beside the slurry tanks or whatever. No, we've got to have a bit of common sense here, and there is an expectation of a standard of living that people expect when they're living in the countryside. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hussey. Any other comments? Heard comments. Is there any proposals and of the letters or not, or?
Chair, could I come back in?
Yeah.
Yeah, it may have been lost in my contribution, but I did suggest and propose. I would propose that we would write to the Minister rejecting the planning advice note and asking her to withdraw it, and I'd also be proposing that we would respond to Jonathan Buckley at the DFI committee chair.
I'm happy to second Councillor Kelly's proposal. Thank you.
Supported.
Councillor Kerrigan. Councillor Boyle, do you comment? Yeah.
Just a comment more than anything, Chair. Based on the information that's been provided in front of us, I'm just a bit curious and a wee bit confused as to the way people feel that it is appropriate or desirable to write. Well, look, I don't mind if you want to write to the Minister, that's fine. But the information in front of us is that this is a re-emphasis of fundamental aspects of an SPPS that we're currently working to. So I'm curious as to what it is that we're asking to be withdrawn, because to my mind, reading the information that we have, there is no fundamental change in the actual SPPS. Things are the same as we have always been working to. So we're effectively saying to somebody, take back the letter that you sent us. The SPPS is still going to be there. It won't change. The policies is going to be the same policy. That's the information that I see in front of me. If people want to write, then that's fine. But I don't see any sense in doing that, because it's not going to change anything. Whether the letter's sitting on our desk or not sitting on our desk, the SPPS is the same SPPS. Unless officers want to tell me something different to what I'm seeing in front of me, and advice on that would be appreciated. Because I don't see any. It's a clarification. It's actually not even a clarification. It's a re-emphasis of what we've been working with. And actually, the history of this, again, according to the paper in front of us, is that this SPPS was agreed in 2015. It was agreed across executive committees. And I'm not a great believer in conspiracy theories, and I don't see any conspiracy in this. That's just my view on it. And quite frankly, you know, I wouldn't be supportive of writing a letter that really isn't going to achieve anything at all, because there's nothing, to my mind, there's nothing here that fundamentally changes any of the planning policies that we've been operating to under PPS 21.
You, Councillor Boyle, but there really is a few issues that the planning advice note, if it was taken rigidly, would change. I appreciate that, and I don't probably think we should be going down the road of conspiracy theories either. It's not right, you know. I think everyone's just passionate about planning and the way they interpret it, and that's the way. Councillor Minnie.
Thank you, Chair. Just to follow on from the contributions thus far, been reading the PAN and reading the associated documents, and I've no real problem with a letter being sent, but like Councillor Boyd, I don't see there's any tickets now. My conclusions that I've drawn really from this PAN is like it's a reinstatement of PPS 21, the SPPS, and until our new plan comes in the incorporation, then as it says in the PAN, it's it says one point here, the PPS 21 is extant. That is the current plan. Yeah, number 16, dwellings on farms. The SPPS and extant PPS 21 policy. So we are, I mean, I don't really see it as reinforcing or in any way providing a new emphasis. It seems to me just a reinstatement of existing policy. But unless somebody tells me what gives me an interpretation as to what they think, but reading through it and reading through PPS 21 as it stands, and don't see any real difference or any real conclusions. So, but that's my tuppence worth anyway. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I would say there's another reason, and there's very good reason, to write a letter to ask them to withdraw this, because it's probably been written by someone who has no understanding of living on the countryside. And when a lot of this stuff comes in through here, through this planning committee, we look at the applications in the whole, and we look at material considerations that come along with those applications. And I think that this planning note is trying to undermine those material considerations and are actually trying to reinforce a policy that is very much restricting planning committee. That's the reason for writing the letter back.
Thank you, Councillor Giller. And planning advice note wouldn't have been, why write it, you know, if it has no bearing on anything. It does say decisions taken by this council were having an adverse impact, you know, on the rural area. But regardless of that, had the debate that's been proposed and seconded by Councillor Kerrigan, proposed by Councillor Kelly. Or maybe you take us through the vote, because I don't think it's going to be unanimous. So all those in favour of Councillor Kelly's recommendation? Proposal, sorry.
Just put me. Well, yeah, 3 in favour, Chair, in the chamber.
I am in favour.
Where do we not need to finish the chamber? Okay. Alan Breslin.
Or
Alderman Derek Hussey. It gets confusing. Alderman Keith Kerrigan.
For Mara.
Councillor Jason Barr. Councillor Jason Barr. Come back. Councillor John Boyle's in the chamber. Angela Dobbins is not here. That's that. I know that's exactly why I wanted to do the chamber first. It's very confusing.
To verbalise it, on this occasion, I'm going to abstain from any involvement in sending this particular letter. Don't see the point. Thanks.
Councillor Mooney abstain. Thank you. So that's Councillor Boyle in the chamber and Councillor Sean Mooney abstaining. Go back. Councillor Angela Dobbins is apologies. Councillor Paul Gallagher hasn't voted in the chamber. Councillor Christopher Jackson is apologies.
Oh, 4 more.
Oh, sorry, you're on. Sorry.
4 more.
Thank you for Councillor Dan Kelly.
4 more.
Thank you. Councillor Keir Maguire is in the chamber. Councillor McKinney is apologies. Councillor Sean Mooney is in the chamber. Thank you. So that's 3 in favour in the chamber. 1, 2, 3, 4 in favour online.
Did you get Councillor Barr there? He voted in the chat box, Maura.
No, I'm just Councillor Barr, technical problems. 4. Okay. So that's 5 in favour online, 3 in favour in the chamber. That's 8 in favour. And 2 abstentions.
Or and 2 abstentions. And we move now to item 10, and Maura's going to take us through that.
Thank you, Chair. Members, we do obviously an annual update in terms of our statistics, in terms of the feedback from the development management performance. And I've done the usual report. I'll just highlight, I suppose, key points from that in terms of this year's performance. So that'll be the financial year 2020 to 21. I suppose just to highlight this, our council has experienced the highest increase in the number of new planning applications in Northern Ireland last year. We've received a rise of 14.2%. We also have experienced the highest number of new local applications across Northern Ireland at nearly 15%. We are only one of 3 councils who met their local target during the pandemic. We managed to achieve the highest reduction in our 12-month cases in Northern Ireland from 26% to 18%. We had the highest increase in the number of enforcement cases closed in Northern Ireland, up 13%. We are only one of 6 councils who have met their enforcement target this year, with the closure time target during the pandemic. And we are reporting the second highest improvement in our major target by 30 weeks. Going from 96 weeks to 65 weeks. No councils, including ourselves, met this difficult target. And we still remain the second highest approval rate in Northern Ireland at 98.6%. I suppose, members, in my, in this year that we've experienced, I suppose it has been very challenging for everyone, and it's been very challenging for the staff and maybe our customers and consultees and everyone that and members throughout this process in terms of getting planning committees working and creating new protocols and ways, processes. But I suppose I thought it was important, to highlight that even just being in a situation that the system operated and that we issued decisions and we were able to achieve, you know, safety in terms of the staff and also managed to keep the engine operating and adapt significantly a huge amount of our work practices. I think just even the fact that we were able to get up and running, I think we were one of the first councils operating with all our officers at home in terms of planning, and we reported that very early to the chief planner in regards to that and to the chief exec. And as a result of that, I think we've managed to not only maintain a good performance, we've actually performed excellently, which has, in my view, is a great achievement for the team and for, I mean, we rely heavily on our admin, we rely heavily on yourselves in terms of operating the planning committee and the technical support that we receive regarding, you know, Paul Jackson and his team and the press team and everybody, you know, in order to achieve, to keep it moving. And I suppose it's just, I think it's great to see that each team actually did excellently, I think, and I don't normally sing our praises as much as this, but and I suppose on top of that, we've had a 14% increase overall in our planning application numbers. So managing that in itself, when we would all be in the office working normal practices, but doing all that change as well, I think has been a real achievement in itself. So particularly, I have to say, reducing the backlog, which is always a challenge in the council and the nature of the applications we received in this area with the complexity, is very noteworthy. So during lockdown as well and coming out of lockdown, there had been some engagement as well with the staff and looking back in terms of the overall, all the departments across. I'm sure you're aware of that there was a staff engagement day, and our team also contributed to that. So there was a short video done, and if you don't mind, Chair, I wouldn't mind if I could show that just in terms of the staff's experience of the year that we had, just to conclude my presentation. Thank you. James is going to play it for us, hopefully. Just take a wee while to load up. Thank you, Chair.
at it, I want to share and congratulate Maura and your team for all the hard work and reaching them. We would like to call getting that lost here. Go ahead, Country.
Thanks, Chair. Just while you're gathering your thoughts, I think the muted video just threw everybody there and ended up throwing us all into mute. Sometimes actually a picture can paint 1,000 words as well, but I'm sincerely hoping James can sort out the gremlins for us all before we conclude today. But just to put in the record personally, Maura, to you and your team, and that's everybody across the board. My thanks, but actually, I'm rare enough that I would do this in the planning committee, but I think I could speak on behalf of my own colleagues in the SDLP and proffering our thanks and congratulations to everybody as well. An outstanding performance actually over the last year. When you bear in mind the challenges that everybody did face, so many and so varied, no doubt. So many people having to try to communicate with each other from home a lot of the time in that period. The technical challenges that would have provided for your department, and of course, again, to thank everybody in the technical team for being of assistance. The standouts for me actually are those the part of the report that actually references the tackling of the backlog, Chair. I remember, and you'll remember, when we started out the journey of council and council planning committee, just how many planning applications were sitting in the system and waiting to be cleared through the system, and it numbered in hundreds, as I recall. I'm sure they had a planning, we'll remember the exact number, but as I recall it, it was a substantial figure. And when we look at the major processing target that has now gone down to 65.2 weeks. Now, I know we want to improve on that, but that's comparing it to 96 weeks last year. And very significantly comparing it to 154 weeks the year before. So we can see just from that one particular statistic, the level of time and commitment that has gone into tackling backlogs and actually also processing new applications. But as I said, I think the important thing to recognise too is that it was a very challenging year for everybody across the council, not least planning officers and of course council members. And I think it's fair to reflect, we're a small part of that. And sitting here in this committee, it's really all about the work and time and effort that the staff and the planning committee put in. So I suppose looking at it, if we're looking at this and looking at the report and a graph, the general trend, in fact, the absolute trend is upwards and positive. And I can find very little that I could be in any way critical of. So again, just to say through you, Chair, if I could, thanks to Maura, thanks to Eamon, other senior officers who are not in the chamber with us here today, and the entire planning team on the council. And I look forward to, again, a continuation of that good news story. And it's certainly something I don't think officers sometimes get enough praise, but I am very fulsome in my thanks and my praise for the time and effort put in over the last 12 months.
Councillor Husband.
Thank you. It may seem strange to some for me to actually speak on this, given that I'm a newbie on the committee, but not a newbie to planning. Like Councillor Boyle, I go back to the very beginnings of setting up the current planning scenario as basically an autonomous body and all the training, etc. And as Councillor Boyle has highlighted there, the large backlog that we did have, and sincere thanks for the clearance of that. something that stands out to me in this, and it's the increase in planning applications. And I mean, there's there's good news in there. There's growth in our council area. And the even better news is that our officers have been able to deal with that and deserve sincere congratulations for that. If I speak before my time of coming on to planning committee, like others, I can only be full of praise for the contact that I would have had on behalf of applicants with officers, and the speed of reply, etc., has always been outstanding. We may not have always agreed with whatever the recommendations were, etc., and you know, we've managed to get through that in an amicable way. And I mean, the team are to be majorly congratulated on that and achieving all of those targets. But as I say, for me, the thing is the increasing applications in trying circumstances, not alone with COVID, but I'm sure with other issues that come along. And plus the fact we're also dealing with a local development plan at the same time. It's a fantastic work that's been done by the department. Sincere congratulations to each and every one involved. Thank you, Chair.
Any more comments? Oh, sorry, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair Livingston, really cutting us out there. Hi, and again, I would like to congratulate Maura and all the staff. Hi, and I'm relatively new to planning as well. Hi, and my observations that over the time as a councillor is planning sort of gets a bad rap. It's the tail end of the work that council does. You'd find a lot of councillors would run their way when you talk about planning. And that's right. That's right. And likewise, and sometimes I say to myself, who would be a planner? Because a lot of stuff that comes in and through here, like we put it through the mincer, and rip it apart, and put it back together again, and sometimes you'd scratch your head, and say that, you know, the long process that planning officers go through with applications and the time they put in needs to be recognised, that how this part of council is playing an enormous part of the life of this district. And when you see the stats that we're starting to top all other councils, then that is, and Derek said there, like a good news story. It's a good news story that never gets out there. And it's just planning mundane, it's red tape to set that's that next thing. But if planning stopped, I think that people would soon recognise we run into a pandemic, COVID, changed the ways of doing things and overcome the ways of doing things through a pandemic and come out on top. So I think that Council's PR department needs to be doing a story on it and flagging this up. Thank you. Include Philip and then want to talk about officers too, you know, because there's good guidance there.
Councillor Kerry and then Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in. And Chair, we're all doing the same here, and I'll not presume, but I will speak on behalf of our group, on behalf of Alderman Breslin and Alderman McClintock in our absence, and to thank the planners and congratulate them for the work they have put in. It's not been easy. To be fair, Chair, I know you're caught down there today, but I'm content enough now with the online system when we can do it. It saves us a run from way back down here in Castleair to get the whole way, or way outside Castleair to get the whole way down to the Guildhall for a meeting. So but Chair, I do thank the officers for all the work that's put in, and as Councillor Gallagher's touched upon there is so much work put in to reports and so much effort put into it, and oftentimes when it comes into the chamber, you know, some of us maybe rip it apart, and it's nothing personal. It just is the way it falls out, and you know, all the planners just kind of take it on the chin and they do well, and you know, it is a credit to them. And no, as I say, fair play to them for the work they've put in, for the effort, and it is much appreciated. You know, and as even just the comment there, Councillor Jackson or Councillor Gallagher did state there, you know, if the planning stopped, there'd be some backlog, and you know, it's a credit to them, and well done. And on behalf of our block, our thanks to them as well. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chair. And like others, I'm going to join in the congratulations and commend the work that's been done by the department. And I know we see it at committees when we see just the sheer amount of work that goes into preparing committee reports. They help us make informed decisions on each application. And as others have said, we may not always agree with the interpretation of policy, but what we do is we really appreciate the amount of information that's given to us. They help us in an easy to follow way. They help us make an informed decision. But the work of this committee is the tip of the iceberg, and when it's a small percentage of the applications that's been assessed and processed by the department. The sheer volume of work is, and the fact that that's increased, it has to be commended. And everybody that's playing a part to try and assist people they in processing their applications and need to be congratulated. So on behalf of Sinn Féin, I want to again congratulate the whole team for all the work that they've carried out over the last year. And one of the things that hasn't been just focused on, and I think it's something that particularly in the middle of a pandemic, we should recognize and acknowledge. See, a lot of the applications are well, there's a considerable number of applications that come through the department are for house adaptations to allow people with severe mobility problems, disabilities, to allow them to remain in their homes. And I know in any of the correspondence I've had with planners, the planning department, they're dealt with in a very timely manner, and the difference that these applications make to people's lives just can't be quantified. So I just want to, again, on behalf of Sinn Féin, just thank and congratulate everybody that's been involved in the planning department over the past year. Thank you, Chair.
You, Councillor Jackson. I think the word I was looking for was targets. No, I just, on behalf of myself, I want to congratulate you and all your team, and indeed Philip here, on reaching these targets. The stats there speak for themselves, and I know, as Councillor Gallagher said, when applications come into the chamber, they can be put through the mincer, is right, and I'd be probably one of those. But I do appreciate everything that the planners do, and keep up the good work. Thank you.
think our achievements really speak for themselves throughout the pandemic. We have been able to process a significant number of major applications and key development sites within the Derry and Strabane district and within the city itself. And some of these that have been processed to completion throughout the last year would include a major social housing development on the former Adria factory site in Strabane, a retail application for the relocation of Lidl on Buncrana Road. There was a major development proposal for the redevelopment of Sean Dolan's GAA club and 120 social housing units on lands adjacent to that in the Craigan. We have processed a major extension to Seagate and 4 IT data centres in Maydown, as well as some private major house developments such as 400 houses and the Hitch 30 sites at the Call Roundabout.
The biggest achievement from our perspective is everybody got an opportunity to contribute to the successes that we've had. I mean, we have issued over 900 planning applications, which is a 12% increase on what we'd done the year before. And in order to do that, what we did was we had to look at the tasks, we had to establish, safe practices in work, we had to have bubbles for staff. We also had to have rotas where people come in and they felt safe and secure. Obviously, corporately, we did everything that we were advised to regarding social distancing and hand sanitising and wearing masks. We also, as well as processed the applications and say the key thing was keeping our staff safe and well, and we are delighted that everybody has come through this so well.
Okay, no more comments on item 10. Item 11, information. Is there anyone, any? And item 12, spell up, is it?
Thank you, Chair. There are no videos of the Legal Services Department as we do our work in the shadows. This paper, members, is just to advise you of a number of judicial reviews that currently are in the system. We have received pre-action protocol letters in respect of 3 items which are noted there in the report. I can advise members that we have actually now received a 3rd pre-action protocol letter from Mr. Duff in relation to an additional planning approval for a house in the countryside. That was one which was approved by officers and didn't come before the committee. I can also advise members that in respect of 2 of the matters that are listed in the report since this report was authored, in respect of that first application, 21 Bigwood Road, Ardmore, Derry, we have now received papers in respect of an application for leave, which has been lodged with the High Court. And we have also received an application for leave, as members will note, in respect of the enforcement matter as well, members. So obviously we will progress those various matters. It is, I think, clear from the papers that have been lodged by Mr. Duff in respect of the application for leave that we can realistically expect that we will receive future pre-action protocol letters in respect of approvals in respect of houses in the countryside as well. The documents are there, members. If anybody has any specific questions in relation to them, I'm happy to advise members. couple of points is obviously to note that there will be financial costs implications in respect of all of these matters, as the council will have to instruct council to defend them, and that's likely to impact on budgets. Also, members, just to note that in those cases in respect of which there are where leave applications are granted and there are applications then made to the court for judicial review, if any of them reach that stage, we will have to file affidavits, and that where those matters relate to overturns of committee decisions, the Knox case versus Causeway Coast and Glens makes it clear that the affidavit evidence in respect of those matters will have to be lodged by members of the committee and not by officers. Obviously, officers will assist in the drafting of those, but the evidence will have to come from elected members, not from officers. Happy to take any questions that members might have.
Chair.
Thanks. Philip, you mentioned there, obviously, council will be taking on legal support for that. In the event of the appeal being, or the judicial review being in favour of council, are costs then awarded to council to cover the costs that would be involved?
Chair, in respect of those cases, certainly to date, that have been lodged by Mr. Duff, he has raised in the course of those, because they are developments in the countryside, he is indicating that there are environmental issues associated with the continuing development in the countryside. And as such, he has indicated, and the council would accept, that those cases fall within the confines of the Aarhus Convention, which restricts the amount of costs which it's an access to justice issue for environmental cases. So that restricts the costs which are recoverable from an applicant in respect of each of those cases. That amount has to be determined by a court in due course, but it's normally capped at a ceiling of £5,000 for those costs. And of course, the cost of a judicial review would be significantly more than that.
Dan? Kelly?
Thanks, Chair. I'm just looking for a wee bit of clarification, because I think I missed what Philip's initial contribution in terms of that paper. Did he suggest there was another application that's not on the paper that we've been served papers on?
Yes, Chair, there is one further one. Suzanne could probably provide the exact reference number. I don't have it in front of me, but we have now received a third pre-action protocol letter from Mr. Duff in respect of a further grant of planning permission for a house in the countryside. As I say, that is one which would have appeared in the past in the list of decisions issued, as it was a matter which was approved by officers and didn't come before the committee. It does happen in respect of houses on the countryside on occasion, Councillor Kelly.
I take your word for it, Philip. I wonder, Chair, would it be possible for the officer just to forward that at some point?
Yeah.
Not today, maybe, but just whenever.
Yeah, we can circulate that. That's no problem. The site in question is LA 11 20 21 0362. And it's at 20 metres north of 72 Letterbrat Road, Dunbridge.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you.
Ready?
Chair, is there a date for the leave hearing, Philip?
Chair, no, there isn't as yet in respect of the first application by Mr. Duff, which is noted in the paper, in respect of which papers have just been lodged. We're still waiting to hear whether or not the court will determine that application on the papers, or whether or not there will be a leave hearing. In respect of the Craig enforcement matter, the court has indicated that it does wish to have an oral hearing in respect of that matter. No date has yet been fixed. There has been a request, from recollection, the request from the court that the counsel for each party should discuss that matter first.
Any more comments? No? Suppose we go into committee. Mr. Boyle, Mr. Hussey.